Hey y'all, just want to share some of my favorite wrist, shoulder, and hip mobility drills with you guys today. It's so important that we get those areas warmed up and moving, especially if we plan on doing any arm balancing, splits, handstanding in our flows. So I'm just going to share those with you today. First, let's talk about the wrists. Generally, before I do any kind of movement, I warm my wrists up, and I start off with doing these rolls. So I roll them in one direction about 8 or 10 times, and then in the other direction, just to get them moving. And then one of my other favorite drills that I do is you take your hand and you extend your arm, you bend your thumb down, and then you wrap your fingers around your thumb, and then you take the other hand and you bend your wrist and your fingers towards you. And I usually hold this for about 10 counts on either side. And you don't want to apply too much pressure, but it just gives you a really good stretch through your forearm. So for just a couple seconds more, and then we'll switch. And again, bend your thumb down, wrap your fingers around your thumb, and then gently press your fingers and entire hand towards you. Hold that for a few seconds. And then another one, it's real simple. Just hold your arms out in front of you and do spider fingers. Lots of times. I guess for 30 seconds maybe. And it really starts to burn after a while, but that way you know that you're working them out and getting them ready to put some pressure on them. Then the next one that I like to do is coming on all fours. And you want to make sure that your fingers are pointing towards the end of your mat and that your thumbs are pointing towards each other. So like you're holding up 10 fingers. You just place them on the mat. And then you just roll around on your wrists in either direction. So I'd say about 5 rolls going to the right and then 5 to the left. And I'm not actually counting, but you get the picture. And then kind of the same position as when we did the wrapping our fingers around our thumbs. Take your hands and place them palm up. I think you can see what I'm doing. With your fingers pointing towards your knees. And be careful with this one. You don't want to put too much pressure when you lean back, but then you just gently lean back and bend your wrists in this direction. And just hold this for about 10 counts. And I have a mosquito, excuse me. And then the last one that's really important, because we don't think about our fingers a lot of times, but especially if you like to do handstands and arm balances. So again, you want to make sure that you're in this position with your hands and that your fingers are pointing towards the top of your mat. And then you just lift your wrists, and you want to keep that first set of knuckles at the base of your palm on your mat. I'm trying to decide if you can see better this way. Yeah. So you want to lift them, and again, keep your arms straight and those knuckles down, and you just lift your hands up. And the further forward you lean, the more difficult it becomes. But that's a really good warm up for your fingers and your wrists. Now let's move on to shoulders. So scapular push-ups are always good, but I like to start off before I ever try to do any push-ups, just warming up my shoulder area. So it's almost like you hold your arms straight out and your palms up, and it's almost like you're doing a push-up, but just in the air. So you want to protract and retract your shoulder blades. And probably about 20 of these. And you can see I'm really just trying to just stabilize my arms and only slide my shoulders backwards and forwards. And I'll turn around so you can see. It's almost like you want to try to squeeze a pencil between your shoulder blades in the back. And then you can move straight into doing actual scapular push-ups. And of course, you can do these on your knees initially if this is new to you. And again, you want to keep your shoulders over your wrists in a straight line. And then you just make the same motion that we just did, but in this push-up position. And again, about 10 of these. Remembering to try to think about squeezing a pencil between your shoulder blades. And then, if you want to try to go for the full push-up, just come up on your toes. Again, making sure that you have your shoulders lined up with your wrists. And it's the same movement. And I do about 10 of those, if those were the only ones I was doing. If you start off on your knees, do about 5 on your knees and then try for 5 in a regular push-up position. Some people, you know, can just plop down on the mat and go into splits and, you know, they just have a lot of movement in the hips, but mine are not that way. So before I start a flow, I try to get some fluidity in those joints. And so what I start off with, and this is pretty good if you have some knee issues, because you're not really putting a whole lot of pressure on your knees. You're just really getting to the movement in the hips. So what you do is you just put your legs in a 90-degree, each of them in almost a 90-degree angle, or as close to a 90 degree as you can get. And then you just switch them. I'd say about 10 times, 5 on each side. And you want to try to keep your knees as close to your body as you can when you come up. And not only does it warm up your hips, but it also loosens up your back muscles as well, your low back muscles. And then if you're ready, you can take it up into Malasana, and then you just drop one knee at a time. Now this will put more pressure on your knee area, on your knee joints, so be careful with this one if you have problems with your knees. And again, 5 on each side. This is great for ankles as well. So, I hope you try those. Maybe you've done them before. It's just a good way to warm up before you actually start flowing. See you later.